The sector has a vision to have a food secure county. We have several mandates, which among them is we have to ensure sustainable development and management. We develop and manage crops, livestock, and fisheries. We are now at a point where we are now coming up with a food system strategy, which the other day we were able to go through a dialogue, which will now culminate to several other meetings, and we do believe we'll have a successful public participation, which gives us a food system strategy to be able to appraise the food systems in Nairobi. Kama inaingia wapi? Inaenda kwa nani? Are we able to sell to our people at reasonable prices? Or do we get a piece of fish from Kisumu for a certain amount of money, and then by the time it gets to Nairobi, it is like times 10?
Change the attitude of people in Nairobi, in Kabete, where we have an acre each, to start thinking in terms of food. You know, the Asian countries are showing us that you even can grow food on story buildings. You see walls full of food. You see floors full of food. You see in Korea or Singapore, you see poultry is run in multi-story buildings. The first floor is a breeder, the second floor is a grower, the third floor is, these are innovative ideas.
Today, we are gathered here at Siala Resort in Kisumu County, together with the Nairobi City County Assembly Committee of Food, Agriculture and Veterinary Services. The objective of our workshop today is to share and discuss the objectives and the functions of the sector, more specifically to enlighten the committee members of the activities and the objectives of the sector so that we can work together as executive and the county for purposes of smooth running and service delivery for Nairobi residents. One of the key areas we have discussed today and which is very critical in the sector is the issue of food value chain or the food systems as they affect our livelihoods and service delivery. Food is a very critical component of our lives. In fact, it's one of the basic needs of human life. And discussing the issue of value system, we have touched on key elements of the food system. One of them being the production, the second being agglomeration, the third is transportation or the supplies, and then storage, distribution, consumption, and then the issue of recycling our foods. Production is where we look at the inputs or land as one of the factors of production and how this impacts on food production, more specifically for Nairobi City County, where many people may not see agriculture as very important for an urban setting in Nairobi. In fact, many people think that agriculture or food production is more relevant in rural areas. The second thing we have discussed is agglomeration, where after the production of food, and depending on the organization of communities, either in the form of associations or cooperatives, or as more individuals, people put or pool their resources together for purposes of transportation to consumption points. Then, after the agglomeration, there is a point of supplies or the transportation, knowing very well that Nairobi City County produces about 20% of the food it consumes. The rest is produced in the neighboring counties like Kiambu, Kajiado, Narok, Nyahururu, parts of Kirinyaga, parts of Meru, parts of Machakos, and Kitui. And in fact, even in the northeastern, because you have the issue of camels, sheep, and goats. And then we also need to look beyond, where we get food from Uganda and from Tanzania. And then from abroad, like rice. And all these are very important when we discuss about the distribution, because this distribution will depend on the quality of our infrastructure, particularly the roads, to some extent the railways. In fact, I've forgotten to mention Mombasa and Kilifi because of the issue of fish, and Kisumu for that matter. So when we discuss this, then distribution or the transportation, it becomes very critical, because it will affect the mode of transportation, it will affect the time it takes for this food to reach the consumption points. It also determines the quality of food because of the time it takes. And the more the time it takes, and depending on the mode of transportation, the more the quality is affected. Then the other bit after transportation is the storage, either storage or processing, because much of the food, once it is supplied, if it's perishable, it is important that it goes either to processing or to consumption points immediately. And you have enlightened members on the importance of those two.
Today, the Agriculture Department from the Executive and the Nairobi County Assembly MCAs and the Secretariat from Nairobi County were able to discuss various issues and get updates on various directorates. Like, for instance, we got some information on the Directorate of Forestry and Land Use. I know that also comes in with the planning, also has to do with the land use. But the forestry and land use is a very, very important aspect of Nairobi. We have two forests, just in case somebody doesn't know. We have Ngong Forest, and we have the Karura Forest. And even in Karura Forest, we have land that even there are people who do beekeeping and so on. So apart from people who use it for recreational purposes, there are people who are benefiting in this land use. And then we have also discussed on issues to do with the tree planting within Nairobi. We are saying that there should be some policies that probably we can develop on tree planting, especially vis-a-vis the constructions of roads that have really happened in Nairobi. We need to have people, when they construct roads, we follow up very ardently so that they also plant trees where they have cut some in order to construct. We also have heard the fact that the Directorate of Veterinary Services has given us what the directorate includes. It has animal husbandry, we have the dog clinic, we have the abattoirs that come under this. These abattoirs are Kichinjio, and we have two of them. One is in Dagoretti and the other one is that side of Gorogocho. And we have realized that there are very many people who are having, for instance, dairy cattle, and there is a lot of milk that is being produced. Here at Karen, there is somebody even who has got a processor, and somebody who is also supplying milk to some of the very well-known dairy farms that package those milks. So we are saying Nairobians can really benefit a great deal if this milk is done well and well processed, and it will not be able to take business from the other parts of the country, no. But we are saying that we use fully the available resources, because in that way we are making people who live in Nairobi to get a means of living, and at the same time they are also earning a living and paying taxes to Nairobi. So we want to maximize the space we have. We get money, but at the same time we are also helping Nairobians. So we are saying that possibly we could have a policy like anybody that utilizes land within Nairobi, we can have their rates being halved. depending on what type of utilization of that land is. If you utilize land very fully with agri-business, then you can have your rates for that particular piece of land being halved. And it will not just be you bring one chicken or one cow and expect the rates to be put down. No. We are clever enough, it will be assessed, and then you can have your rates being halved. So those are some of the discussions. There are still under discussions. We have a food system which we are at policy making, but we are hoping that, that it can become a bill and then later on an act, because as people bring in food, we also want chemicals that are being put on, the fertilizers that are being used should be food. They should be secure for our people. We don't want them to eat food that have been put a lot of chemicals. We probably have also discussed that we would like food that comes into Nairobi to be labeled. Those that are probably genetically modified, probably labeled when they are on the shelf, so that everybody knows what type of food they are eating. So it's a very comprehensive, and we have had a powerful discussion, and we are looking forward to this being implemented and being done in a good and progressive way, so that Nairobians get the best out of what they deserve.